Stop. Listen. Pay attention for a moment because this is not casual noise passing through your feed. This is a precise interruption. Chosen one. Something has been shifting quietly around you and your spirit knows it, even if your mind cannot fully explain it yet. Lately, you have felt the weight, the pressure, the strange mix of exhaustion and alertness. You wake up tired in ways you cannot link to sleep alone. You feel surrounded, yet somehow isolated. Conversations drain you more quickly. Crowds feel louder. Silence feels heavier. There has been a tension in the atmosphere around your life, as if something has been pressing in, testing the edges of your peace. You have wondered if you are overreacting, if you are imagining things, if maybe you are just burned out, too sensitive, or reading too much into small details. At the same time, there is a part of you that refuses to dismiss what you feel. A quiet inner awareness has been whispering, "Pay attention. Something is happening that you cannot see yet." This moment is not here to scare you. It is here to explain you. You have been feeling more pressure than usual, but what you have not realized is that you have also been carrying more power than usual. The tension around you is not random. It is a response to who you are and how you have been moving. Hidden resistance has been trying to form against you, but what you did not know is that you were already silencing it without even trying. You are not listening to this by accident. You were not recommended this just because of an algorithm. This is a targeted message arriving on time because you have reached a point in your journey where you deserve to understand what has really been happening in the background. In the next moments, you are going to see why the pressure increased, why certain people shifted, why certain doors felt slow to open, and why, despite all of that, you did not break. You will not be left guessing. You will not be left confused. You are about to receive language for what your spirit has already been sensing all along. This is intentional. It is personal. It has your story in mind. As you stay with this message, you will begin to see that what looked like opposition was actually exposing your quiet strength, and that what tried to work against you has already started to lose its voice. This is not a message that could belong to anyone. It is not for the curious. It is not for entertainment. It is not for someone casually passing through. This is for you specifically, because what has been happening did not simply occur around your life. It happened in relation to you. Things shifted because of your presence. Pressure formed because of your stability. Resistance rose because something within you did not collapse when it was expected to. You are not called Chosen One as a dramatic title. It is not exaggeration. It describes the way you have been set apart internally, even when life around you looked ordinary. Others may share your environment, but they do not share your resilience. You have faced what many would never speak about out loud, and you continued to show up anyway. You continued to move, function, think, care, and stay present. That alone already separates you from many. There have been moments where you did not even realize how strong you were, because strength to you did not look like aggression or loud confidence. It looked like getting up when the weight was heavy. It looked like staying grounded when emotions tried to sway you. It looked like holding peace when you could have chosen chaos. Your strength has been quiet, automatic, and deeply rooted. You did not fight the tension with panic. You absorbed it with composure. Where others would have reacted impulsively, you regulated yourself. Where others would have lashed out or collapsed inward, you chose steadiness. Even when you felt unsure, you did not allow instability to govern you. That matters more than you realize. This season did not simply measure what you know. It revealed who you already are. You did not have to become strong to survive it. You already were, and the situation merely confirmed it. There were pressures designed to provoke a reaction, but instead, you maintained alignment. There were forces hoping for weakness, but what appeared instead was depth discernment and calm authority. What you faced was not about proving something to the world. It was about exposing something within you, that your stability is not fragile. It is structural. It is foundational. It is part of your identity, not a temporary response. You may not always feel extraordinary, but your ability to remain grounded when everything around you becomes uncertain is rare. That stability is why this message is reaching you now. Because what tried to confront you never gained the outcome it expected. And whether you realized it or not, you silenced far more resistance than you spoke about, simply by being who you are. There has been one dominant feeling that has followed you recently, and you recognize it even if you have never fully named it. It wasn't just sadness. It wasn't only exhaustion. It wasn't even fear. It was something deeper, quieter, and more persistent, a kind of internal pressure. A heaviness that didn't always make sense. A sense that something unseen was leaning against your life while you were still expected to keep moving. You noticed it in your body. The way your breath sometimes felt shallow even when nothing was wrong. The way tension settled in your shoulders or chest without a clear reason. The way your energy would suddenly drop in environments that didn't look threatening but felt spiritually or emotionally draining. Your nervous system wasn't malfunctioning, it was communicating. You noticed it emotionally as well. The way your patience shortened, not because you were becoming harsh, but because your spirit was becoming less willing to tolerate what was false, draining, or misaligned. The way you felt quieter, more observant, less interested in proving yourself or forcing connection. You were not withdrawing, you were recalibrating. You noticed it mentally. Thoughts looping, reflection deepening, awareness sharpening. You began thinking more carefully about your environment, your relationships, your routines. Not out of paranoia, but out of instinct. Something inside you was becoming protective, not afraid. You may have judged yourself for overthinking or being too sensitive. But sensitivity is not weakness. Sensitivity is intelligence in the unseen spaces of life. None of this was dysfunction. None of it was failure. What you were experiencing was not collapse. It was resistance. Your spirit was pushing back against what was pressing in against you. The fatigue you felt was not proof that you were losing ground. It was evidence that you were carrying something worth protecting and maintaining, even while being subtly challenged. You did not crumble under the weight. You adapted beneath it. What you called feeling off was actually your inner strength reorganizing itself. What you interpreted as emotional fatigue was your soul choosing not to invest energy where it was being drained unfairly. What felt like isolation at times was actually protection, steering you away from influences that did not deserve access to your depth. This is why you must release the self-judgment. Stop labeling yourself as too much, too emotional, too aware, or too cautious. You were responding correctly to an invisible pressure that required maturity to withstand. Your reactions were not proof of weakness. They were proof of discernment. You were never breaking down. You were stabilizing under stress. You were never losing your strength. You were learning how to hold it, without shouting, without fighting loudly, without proving anything outwardly. Everything you felt was a signal, not a flaw. And now that signal has meaning. What you were sensing was not imagination. There was pressure forming around your life, and it was not random. It was subtle, quiet, and often difficult to name, but it was real. Something pushed against your peace. Something tried to disturb your clarity. Something attempted to create noise where you were meant to remain steady. And it did not come loudly, because loud resistance is easy to see. This came quietly, because quiet pressure is meant to wear you down slowly. The resistance you faced did not always look like conflict. It did not always arrive in arguments or obvious opposition. It appeared through sighs of discouragement that seemed to come out of nowhere, through moments where motivation drained for no clear reason, through interactions that left you feeling smaller, quieter, slightly unsettled, through delays you could not explain, through environments that seemed ordinary, yet left you feeling emotionally depleted. There was a coordinated nature to it, not in a dramatic or sensational way, but in a patterned way. It seemed to press in during moments when progress was within reach. It increased when you were close to clarity growth or forward steps. It tried to interrupt momentum. It tried to introduce confusion just when you were preparing to strengthen your direction. The timing was not accidental. It was intentional. But here's the part that matters most. You stayed functional under it. You continued to think clearly even when your emotions were under strain. You continued to show restraint when provoking responses would have been easy. You continued to move through responsibilities, conversations, and decisions without collapsing inward. That is not something everyone can do. That is a level of internal structure that cannot be faked. You did not confront this pressure by fighting dramatically. You confronted it by remaining grounded. You did not silence this resistance by shouting at it. You silenced it by refusing to surrender your internal balance. Where pressure expected instability, it found steadiness. Where resistance expected emotional chaos, it found centered awareness. That quiet strength disrupted what was pressing against you. Even when you felt tired, you did not abandon yourself. Even when you felt uncertain, you did not act impulsively. Even when invisible opposition tried to provoke fear, you stayed anchored in something deeper than fear. That is why things did not escalate the way they could have. That is why certain tensions dissolved. That is why confusion did not own you. There was confrontation, yes, but it was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was internal. The pressure that tried to surround you never gained dominance over you. It never gained authority over your choices. It never managed to dictate your responses. And because of that, what pushed against you began to lose influence. You endured the unseen tension. More importantly, you remained yourself within it. And that is what silenced what tried to unsettle you. To understand how deeply you navigated this season, we need to slow down and break the experience into what you actually lived through, because it wasn't just one feeling. It wasn't a single wave. It was layered. It was complex. It moved in stages and categories, pressing on different parts of you for different reasons, and you remained stable through all of it. The first pressure point was doubt. It didn't rush in loudly. It crept in as quiet questioning. You began to second-guess what you had already known. You wondered whether you were misreading situations. You questioned your intuition, your direction, your sense of timing. Thoughts like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm imagining this, or maybe I'm expecting too much began to appear more often than usual. But here is what matters. Even when doubt whispered, you did not allow it to rewrite your reality. You felt uncertainty without surrendering your grounding. Your core remained intact, even if your thoughts briefly wavered. You did not allow doubt to become your identity. You continued forward, even while questioning. The second pressure point was fear, not in the dramatic form that people describe, but in a subtle internal tightening. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being taken advantage of, fear that something unseen was forming against you, fear that if things didn't change, you might remain stuck. Yet despite feeling these undercurrents, you did not let fear control your decisions. You did not make desperate moves. You did not panic. You acknowledged the feeling, but you did not bow to it. Fear attempted to shake your inner stability. But instead, you responded with calm caution and deliberate restraint. The third pressure point was emotional fatigue. This one was heavy. You felt tired in a way rest didn't fully solve. Not because you were weak, but because you were carrying emotional weight that no one else could see. You kept showing up while internally managing feelings that rarely had language. You smiled while processing heaviness. You worked while feeling drained. You supported others while having very little left for yourself. This fatigue wasn't laziness. It wasn't lack of motivation. It was the natural effect of holding strength quietly for too long. Yet even in exhaustion, you did not collapse. You didn't quit on yourself. You didn't disengage from life. You adapted instead of shutting down. The fourth pressure point was isolation. Even when people were around you felt a gap, a distance, a separation between what you were experiencing internally and what others could understand. You felt misunderstood without always being able to explain why. There were moments where you wanted to speak, but silence felt safer. Moments when vulnerability seemed risky. That isolation was real. But you handled it with maturity. You didn't turn bitter. You didn't shut your heart completely. You allowed yourself to feel alone without letting loneliness redefine your worth or your direction. The fifth pressure point was delay. Things slowed. Opportunities seemed paused. Progress didn't match your effort. It was frustrating. It tested your patience and your endurance. Waiting without explanation is one of the heaviest pressures a person can face. Yet you did not break under delay. You did not spiral into hopelessness. You did not force outcomes to prove control. Instead, you endured. You continued to prepare. You continued to expect better, even when nothing confirmed improvement externally. That is stability. That is strength. And through all of these categories, doubt, fear, fatigue, isolation, and delay, there was something remarkable happening. You remained regulated. You did not spiral into extremes. You did not make reckless decisions. You did not surrender your peace completely. Instead, you kept adjusting, grounding, breathing, thinking, reassessing, and choosing balance again and again. Where many would have broken inward, you reorganized inward. Where many would have reacted outwardly, you held internal alignment. You experienced pressure, but you did not become pressure. You experienced confusion, but you did not become confusion. That distinction matters. Your nervous system stayed loyal to you. Your inner structure stayed stable. Your spirit stayed awake. You did not collapse into helplessness. You did not become someone unrecognizable to yourself. The circumstances pressed you, but they did not redefine you. What makes this powerful is not that you felt unaffected. You were affected. You are human. You felt weight. You felt tension. You felt the push against your peace. But what makes you stand out is that you remained intact under it. You remained present. You remained connected to yourself. You remained aware, conscious, and grounded, even when pressure tried to weaken your orientation. This is why what formed against you did not succeed. It discovered that no matter what it pressed, something inside you refused to collapse. Something inside you refused to surrender authority over your own inner world. And that quiet refusal, that calm resistance, was what silenced what attempted to challenge you. You did not merely survive the pressure, you stabilized beneath it. You didn't just hold on. You held together. Now that the pressure has been named and separated into its different layers, you can begin to see the season more clearly. Instead of experiencing it as a blur of heaviness, uncertainty, and emotional weight, you can look back with awareness and recognize what truly took place. You were not being overwhelmed randomly. You were being observed, measured, and strengthened. And you remained far more stable than the situation expected you to be. When you look back, you can notice patterns. You can see how, every time discouragement tried to anchor itself, something inside you refused to let it stay. You can see how, even in moments when your emotions dipped, your decisions did not follow them downward. You can remember how many times you could have reacted more harshly, more fearfully, more impulsively, but you didn't. You held yourself with intention. That is not coincidence. That is character. As you reflect, you can acknowledge that nothing about this was accidental timing. The weight didn't arrive when you were unprepared. It came at a moment when your inner structure had matured enough to absorb it without breaking. And instead of folding inward, you adapted. Instead of losing yourself, you stayed present. Instead of collapsing, you regulated. That is significant. This is where the realization becomes important. What surrounded you did not defeat you because you were never actually fighting it directly. You were outlasting it by maintaining coherence within yourself. What tried to destabilize you discovered that your stability was not shallow. It was deeply rooted. It was built over seasons of growth, reflection, experience, and perseverance. That is why you are still standing with clarity instead of confusion. There is no need to credit luck here. Luck does not sustain emotional balance. Luck does not maintain integrity. Luck does not produce grounded responses in prolonged, unseen pressure. What sustained you was your maturity, your awareness, your resilience, and your ability to remain centered even when clarity was temporarily hidden. You can also recognize now that the silence you maintained was not weakness. It was wisdom. The restraint you showed was not passivity. It was strength under control. The steadiness you displayed was not numbness. It was confidence that reacting wildly was unnecessary. These are qualities of someone who is not governed by circumstances, but by inner order. As you review this season honestly, you do not see someone fragile. You see someone consistent. Someone who bent slightly under pressure but did not break. Someone who questioned but did not lose identity. Someone who felt the weight but did not surrender to it. You see someone who learned how to remain present even when the environment felt uncertain. This reflection is your confirmation. You did not imagine the pressure. You did not exaggerate your experience, but neither did you exaggerate your ability to endure. You truly carried yourself well. You truly maintained stability. You truly silenced what attempted to influence you by remaining internally whole. And now, with clarity replacing confusion, you stand not only having survived something unseen, but having proven something to yourself. You are far more grounded than you ever gave yourself credit for. When you place your experience beside the usual human response to prolonged invisible pressure, the difference becomes clear. Many people, when faced with sustained uncertainty, begin to fragment internally. Their thoughts scatter. Their emotions spill outward. Their words become sharper, their decisions more reactive. They either collapse into inactivity or rush into unnecessary action just to escape discomfort. Neither response makes them weak. It only shows how difficult sustained inner tension truly is. Yet you moved differently. You continued showing up for your responsibilities. You continued thinking before speaking. You continued choosing restraint when escalation would have been easier. You did not need the environment to calm down in order to find your equilibrium. You carried equilibrium inside you, and you returned to it repeatedly, even when it wavered for a moment. Most people require perfect conditions to feel balanced. You learned to remain balanced while conditions were imperfect. That distinction matters. It is not superiority. It is not comparison meant to place you above anyone. It is simply acknowledgement of rarity. Many collapse under pressure that lasts too long, not because they are incapable, but because few are trained by experience to remain steady without immediate relief. You endured a long season without visible confirmation, and you did not lose yourself inside it. Your steadiness was not loud. You did not broadcast your endurance. You did not seek applause for what you carried. You lived your life, interacted with others, completed tasks, maintained responsibilities, and quietly processed what almost no one else could fully see. That quiet endurance is uncommon. Others in your place might have lashed out at the wrong people, burned bridges, impulsively sabotaged opportunities, or shut down emotionally. You did not, even when you were tempted to withdraw completely. Something within you chose to stay engaged with life. Even when you were tempted to speak out of frustration, you chose to measure your words. Even when you felt misunderstood, you did not allow resentment to rewrite your character. You did what is rare, you remained yourself under pressure. You also resisted the urge to explain yourself constantly. Many feel compelled to justify their emotions, to gain validation, to prove that what they are sensing is real. Instead, you learned to live without external confirmation when necessary. You trusted your inner signals long enough for clarity to arrive on its own timeline. That ability to wait for truth rather than force it is not common. Your rarity is not performance. It is composition. You did not become strong for this season. This season revealed the strength already woven into how you think, feel, and respond. You were not performing resilience. You were embodying it. And because it is part of your inner structure rather than an act you put on it, remains with you even when circumstances change. So when we say you are uncommon, it is not praise meant to inflate ego. It is recognition of reality. Most do not carry this level of internal coherence. You do. Not as a title, not as a badge. Simply as the way you are built. And that quiet rarity explains why pressure formed around you, why it did not break you, and why you are still standing with clarity where many would have lost their center. Now you can begin to see something clearly that you may have never fully accepted about yourself, for your strength is not something you switch on when life becomes intense. It is not a heroic reaction. It is not an occasional burst of resilience. It is your baseline. It is woven into how you process, how you respond, and how you carry yourself through uncertain seasons. Stability is not something you borrow. It is something you are. You did not rise to the occasion. The occasion simply revealed what was already there. Your ability to remain grounded under pressure did not come from sudden bravery. It came from years of internal growth, quiet reflection, learned restraint, emotional maturity, and hard-earned self-awareness. You developed this steadiness long before you ever needed it at this level. The season did not build you. It verified you. This is important to understand because many people only see strength as something dramatic, as intense emotion, as loud defiance, as visible dominance. But your strength is structured, measured, and deeply rooted. It shows up as calm when chaos expects panic. It appears as clarity when confusion tries to spread. It manifests as steady presence when instability wants to pull you off center. Nothing about this is accidental. You carry emotional depth without drowning in it. You feel deeply, but you do not let feelings rule you. You think carefully, but you do not let your mind spiral endlessly. You care, but you have learned that care must also protect itself. All of these qualities point to someone who has been shaped intentionally by life, not just someone who got lucky with inner resilience. This is why your silence carries weight. Why your restraint matters. Why your choices hold consistency. You are not uncertain about who you are on the inside, even when circumstances attempt to cloud things around you. Your inner framework remains intact. That is identity. That is coherence. That is why unseen opposition loses ground around you. This is not about perfection. You have moments of weakness. You feel tired. You question things. You experience emotions just like anyone else. The difference is that none of those experiences remove you from yourself. You may bend, but you return to center. You may feel pressure, but you do not surrender your core. So hear this clearly, You are not strong by accident. You are strong by nature, by development, by inner design. And now that you see it, you can stop doubting the foundation you stand on. You are not trying to become someone stable. You already are. Now that awareness has settled, the next step is not to intensify yourself. It is not to become hyper-alert. It is not to scan the horizon for threats or brace for more struggle. The next step is integration. Allow what you now understand about yourself to quietly shape how you move forward. You do not need to force transformation. You simply need to allow alignment. The first perspective is rest. Rest is not escape. Rest is restoration. You have carried a season that demanded emotional strength, mental steadiness, and inner regulation. That takes energy, even when done well. You deserve to breathe without pressure, to exist without guarding yourself constantly. Let rest become part of your discipline, not a reward you only give yourself when exhausted. Quiet moments, gentle pauses, intentional breathing. These are not luxuries. They anchor your nervous system back into safety and confidence. The second perspective is discernment without suspicion. Continue to trust your inner signals, but do not turn awareness into fear. You do not need to assume danger everywhere to remain wise. Let discernment guide you calmly rather than defensively. You now know you can sense imbalance. You now know you respond well under pressure. So instead of tensing, allow your awareness to remain grounded. You are capable of recognizing shifts without losing peace. The third perspective is boundaries. Not reactionary walls, not harsh exits. Boundaries grounded in clarity. You are allowed to protect your emotional energy without guilt. You are allowed to step back from conversations that drain you. You are allowed to limit access to those who repeatedly pull from you without contributing safety or respect. Boundaries are not created to punish others. They are created to preserve your alignment so you can continue to live steadily. The fourth perspective is patience. Not the patience that tolerates what harms you, but the patience that trusts timing. Not every adjustment requires immediate change. Some alignments occur gradually. Some realizations unfold in steps. Allow space for life to settle into this new clarity. You are not late. You are not behind. Movement that comes from calm confidence is always more stable than movement driven by urgency. The fifth perspective is focus. You now have more mental quiet than before. Use it wisely. Invest your attention into what builds you, into what strengthens you, into what aligns with who you are becoming. Do not waste emotional energy revisiting scenarios that no longer require your presence. You are free to shift forward. Finally, allow subtle joy to return. Not loud excitement, not forced positivity, just the gentle relief of knowing you are safe within yourself. You are grounded. You are capable. You can trust your own stability again. Let that reality bring calm reassurance to daily life. Nothing here asks you to become someone else. These perspectives simply help you live as who you already are, with more ease, more awareness, and more peace. This is integration strength settling comfortably into your everyday existence. Take a breath for a moment and recognize where you are now. You are not standing in confusion anymore. You are not questioning whether you imagined the pressure, whether you exaggerated your strength, or whether your experience meant anything. You are standing in clarity. You understand what you carried. You understand how you remained steady. And you understand now that what tried to unsettle you did not succeed. This realization does not create arrogance. It creates peace. You do not need to defend yourself. You do not need to prove anything to anyone. You do not need to replay scenarios in your mind to justify how you felt. What needed to be revealed has been revealed internally. What needed to be settled has found resolution. You silenced what opposed you, not with noise, but with endurance. Not with aggression, but with grounded strength. Not by fighting outward battles, but by refusing to lose your inner balance. That is victory. You come out of this season not tense, but calmer. Not hardened, but wiser. Not fearful, but more aware of your own resilience. The clarity you now carry is not heavy. It is stabilizing. It assures you that you can trust your perception, your discernment, your endurance, and your ability to stand firm without losing yourself. Let these truths seal in your spirit. I did not break. I remained myself. My stability is real, and I can trust it. What tried to unsettle me has already lost its influence. Hold these quietly. Let them anchor rather than excite. You are not preparing for another fight. You are walking forward with assurance. If this spoke to you deeply, if you recognized yourself in this journey, leave a simple confirmation in the comments so your awareness becomes declaration. Write, I remain steady. That single sentence acknowledges what you lived and honors how you carried yourself. If you want to continue strengthening your clarity, your identity, and your inner grounding, stay connected here. Subscribe not out of habit, but because you know this space speaks to where you truly are and where you are growing. There is more ahead, not in the sense of struggle, but in the sense of understanding, alignment, and grounded movement. You are not walking forward fragile. You are walking forward aware, secure, and quietly powerful. Move gently. Move confidently. What tried to speak against you has fallen silent. And you are still here, steady, clear, and ready for what comes next.